Bills make me wanna shout. Kick your heels up and shout. Throw your hands up and shout. Throw your head back and shout. Come on now, the Bills are making it happen now.
It's time to talk Buffalo Bills football, and we do it here on a Thursday with our Bills Insider. Today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Bayberry Automotive. Let's bring him in, Anthony Prohaska from Cover One. What's up, Anthony? How are you?
What's up? Thank you for having me. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday to you. All right.
Anthony, let's get right to it.
Here in the last week or so. Let's start with the preseason world. So the Buffalo Bills seem to be giving up some points here in the preseason. 2 games, and we're talking, what I have the tally here,
10,000 points.
Yeah, you're right.
38 to the Bears and a 38-0 drubbing, and 34 to my New York Football Giants. Is that any concern? I mean, preseason is preseason, but are there any concerns about the Bills defense giving up mega points here?
You know what? I think it's less than ideal. Even if you're playing the backups or you're playing vanilla and whatever kind of context you want to add, you still don't want to give up points. You still want to go out and put forth a good showing. You want your 2s to look good. You want your 3s to look good if possible. But in the grander scheme, I'm not too tremendously worried. I think it's more, there are some individual players that have been getting some run in the preseason that are going to matter come regular season time, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So there's been some concerning pieces with some of those guys. But I think on the whole, you know, the tweaks that the Bills defense needs to make and that we started to see during training camp, they're not going to show that stuff in the preseason. We're going to wait until the regular season. We also have to really kind of wait until Michael Hoyt comes back from suspension and Larry Ogunjobi to come back from suspension to really see what they're fully capable of from a roster standpoint and a schematic standpoint. So the Bears' performance overall was ugly. Like, it was a terrible game to watch. Even the film was like not really fun to watch in a lot of respects, but even though it's less than ideal, I don't think it's anything to panic about too tremendously. I saw people calling for Sean McDermott's head because they lost this preseason game. Like, I think that's a bit too far. So again, while it is less than ideal, I don't think it's anything to kind of, ring the alarm bells about completely.
All right, Anthony. So let's get a little bit more serious here. Are the Bills going to win a game this year? 0-2 already? Are they going to go 0-20? What's going to happen?
The Super Bowl window's closed. I think
Clearly.
This team is dead in the water. They got no shot. The biggest problem is, I mean, if they're going to play their 2s and 3s all year against other teams' starters, they're going to have a problem. So we'll see if they change that come regular season, and we'll see what it does.
Yeah, I think that could slightly change. Listen, it's no question, even though they're not playing Josh Allen clearly here in the preseason, that the backup quarterback situation. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I mean, do you feel good going into the season that if Josh Allen were to go down, that one of these 2 guys could pick up the slack? What is your feeling about the depth of this quarterback room?
I felt good after the Giants game. I've been wanting Mike White to get some burn. It felt like we talked about it a bit here throughout, a couple episodes we've done throughout the offseason here. Like, Mitchell Trubisky kind of playing more trepidatiously, and just I felt like he was kind of spiritually or mentally broken after what happened to him in Chicago. But then he aired it out a little bit in that first preseason game, and Mike White did the same. And I was like, okay, like, this might be kind of fun. The Bills are going to be in big trouble if anything happens to Josh Allen. They don't have that level of backup. But I was like, okay, I was encouraged after the first week. Week 2 against the Bears was rough for both QBs. Now, a lot of it was the backup O-line grouping really got worked over in a bunch of ways. And part of that too is some of their second, tier guys are also banged up. So they were really playing the 3s from the jump and then some 4s and kind of 5s when you get into that discussion. So I don't want to put it completely on the QBs for all of their struggles in week 2 in the preseason, just because the O-line got beat early and often, but the QBs did not look good. I still feel fine, but I don't feel as good as I did after week 1. And I feel kind of back towards, man, if anything happens to Allen, which is the case anyway, but if anything happens to Allen, like, this is going to be scary.
So are you guys interested in looking around? Hey, we've got cut day coming next week. 90 player rosters are going to go down to 53. There's going to be waiver wires. As we've seen, there's going to be trades in the league as well. Is there any interest in exploring the rest of the quarterback market?
For me, it could be a potential. I'm not even diving into it because I don't think they're like the Bills as a team are going to consider it. I think they like their QB room. And I also think from like a mental standpoint or a culture standpoint, it's a good QB room. Like, you've even seen it a bit on Hard Knocks, and Allen has talked about it. Like, how great of a group they have. Like, I think they genuinely get along very well together and how they interact. And whether rightly or wrongly, I think a lot of the ways the QB room is built is based off of kind of what or who Josh Allen wants. And like a lot of times the backups the past several years have just been like people that Josh Allen is friends with or like cool with. They still need to be able to play quarterback. But I think a lot of it is if Allen is comfortable with the room, likes the room, and they're going to operate from that standpoint. I don't see anything changing too much. It really just comes down to if they settle at Trubisky or Mike White as QB2.
As Boy Green was saying, Anthony, cuts are coming. They're not too far away. I think one of the places I want to look at with the Bills is that receiver room, because we've got guys like Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, Tyrell Shavers, KJ Hamler, all fighting for what looks like perhaps 2 spots. And there are some other names you could throw in that bucket, I suppose, too. So give me your take on that. Has this receiver room shaping up, and who do you think of that group is going to stay on this roster and who's going to go?
What makes it tough is the injuries. So Khalil Shakir got banged up in the scrimmage at the end of the first week of camp or second week of camp. And he's out until week 1, but it looks like he's on track to play week 1, but he got banged up. Josh Palmer has been banged up like kind of every other day. Curtis Samuel has been banged up for a good chunk and hasn't seen a ton of work. Even Elijah Moore missed, I think, 1 or 2 days at some point. Well, they've really been a position group that's been impacted by a lot of injuries. And I think it really depends on who's healthy and who's not. If all things were equal and everybody was healthy, I think you're looking at a top 5 group of, and not necessarily in order, but Josh Palmer, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and then Elijah Moore. Tyrell Shavers has made a lot of noise in a positive way in practices, in camp, in the scrimmage, and then in the preseason as well. Like, he's had a couple nice catches. Even when QB overthrown him, he's had some good routes and some good releases. I think he's made a case to potentially be kept if they go wide receiver. If they go with 6 wide receivers and everybody's healthy, I think he could be that. Or I think there's a potential chance that he maybe beats out Elijah Moore for wide receiver 5 if all things are equal. Or if anybody is banged up for any significant amount of time, or they have to put someone on a 6-week IR, kind of play some, gamesmanship with the roster, I think Shavers is first man up that they would want to keep and add, and could end up seeing some real snaps if Palmer misses time, if Samuel misses time. Again, the injuries muddy this position group that already kind of had some questions about it coming into camp.
One guy who's gaining some steam, at least in terms of popularity, and we'll get in and break down Hard Knocks in just a little bit, is KJ Hamler. He seems like a bit of a media darling. Give me your thoughts. It doesn't sound like you think he's going to make this roster. So tell me why you think that's not going to be the case. He's
looked good in the snaps that he's had. I think he presents some long speed. He presents some gadgetry stuff. You can give him like the jet sweeps and the little bubbles and let him attack. He had a really nice route on like a zero blitz against the zero blitz from the Bears, but White just didn't have the opportunity. It was Trubisky. The QB just didn't have time to see him, but he hit a nice little, stem outside, snap it back inside of the post, and just broke right across the DB's face and beat him. I just think there's too much ahead of him to kind of solidify himself. I don't think, maybe if Curtis Samuel didn't have the contract that he had and how that kind of muddies, okay, if you want to get out of that, you got to trade for him rather than release, the dead cap situation, how you manage all of that. Maybe if that didn't exist, I think there would be a better chance for Hamler, but I just think there's too much solidification that exists above him. And then with the emergence of Tyrell Shavers and his size and frame and the speed still and the athleticism and the package that he brings, I think it's going to be tough for Hamler to kind of crack that and move over him. And then if we're just kind of reading the tea leaves a bit, just based off of who's seen time and where with what groupings this preseason, I think Hamler's just a bit of a step down in terms of on the depth chart versus someone like Shavers, who he himself is fighting to make the roster.
Again, we're speaking with our guy, Anthony Prohaska, baby, a Cover One podcast host, Disguised Coverage, joining us here on the program as he joins us every single week. I just want to jump into Hard Knocks here for this. I saw one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen on Hard Knocks, and we're going to go to the footage, and we'll let everyone see it.
Come on, bro. I got my shoes wet, and them heavy now. I hate that my body like this, bro. A lot of years, it ain't that it's a lot of years, bro. That I be sweating like this. I hate that. I can't even plant and break. He gave me the Dollar General socks. Oh, man.
That's disgusting. I mean, he ranked that thing out like nobody's business. That's some profuse sweating happening there, Anthony Prohaska.
Yeah, I don't love that scene. It was gross. The only thing that saves that scene for me is I love just Max Hairston being like, oh yeah, like he's like when Trey's like, oh, I hate that my body's like this, bro. And he's like, oh yeah, you put a lot of years on it. And he's like, no, like I'm just like I sweat a ton. And then he wrings the sock out, and you can see Hairston's face be like, oh, like him like looking at him and seeing what's happening there. What I do think is interesting with that scene, as kind of off-putting as it may be, I want to know how often that happens with him, because as he mentioned in there, like not to try and read into it too much, if he has an issue like planning and breaking, how often does he need to change socks? Like how often does he need to change cleats? Like all jokes aside, like if you're a DB, especially a corner, and you have issues planting and breaking, and you're a corner who's had a significant ACL and Achilles injury, how often, is he changing socks and shoes every quarter? Is it every other drive, depending on the temperature? Like now I'm like kind of curious to kind of see. And if he does say he slips or he gets hurt at some point in the season or early on in September when it's hot, the first thing that's going to come into my head is like, did he not change his socks or shoes yet? Was he still too sweaty? Could he not plant and break? Like I not to read too much into it, but I was grossed out, but also like, wait a minute, is this like a thing that he needs to manage, and are they managing it? Yeah, I have questions.
And by the way, just real quick on that, instead of Dollar General socks, maybe there has to be some high performance socks out there in the universe that are anti-perspirant.
I was going to say, somebody's smart and they have that sock already. They saw Hard Knocks, that they are calling Trey or they are calling the Bills, and they're like, hey, we have the socks for you. Let's work out some endorsement or some 100%. Advertising. Let's put you on this spot. Yeah, there's got to be something out there that exists.
Oh my goodness! I didn't know we had sweat glands in our feet. I don't know if I've ever had that.
I didn't know
problem.
Anybody could sweat that much in their foot. Like I knew
that's very unusual.
Yeah, like to that level. Like he wrung it out like he went in the pool with his socks.
And the face of Max Hairston, right? So he hears Travis White say, it's like, yeah, whatever. And then he sees him, rings him out, and he just goes,
yeah, he literally is like, oh, well, like you can just see him be like, oh god, yeah, it's not great.
All right, we'll talk with Anthony Prohaska, our Bills insider from Cover One. Today's broadcast is brought to you by our friends at Bayberry Automotive. Let's just take 30 seconds, and then we're going to hear about some horses when we return right here on the show. Stick around.
Integrity is a word that some people just throw around in life. But at Bayberry Automotive, integrity is everything. Integrity of their mechanics, who are all experienced and certified. Integrity in the work they perform, with nothing but 5-star reviews from satisfied customers on Google. Integrity that goes along with family. A family-run business that treats you like one of their own. Integrity in everything. Bayberry Automotive. BayberryAutomotive.com.
Located on Route 57 across from Bayberry Plaza, the premier choice for auto repair in Liverpool.
All right, we're back talking Bills football and breaking down Hard Knocks here a little bit, having some fun with 3 episodes into the 5-episode series. It's the Bills in their training camp. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about one of the storylines that came out here in episode 3, and that's Ed Oliver's 30 horses. And we saw Ty Johnson shoveling some horse manure, some interesting stuff going on there. Let's talk about it.
I'm surprised. Well, I guess I shouldn't say I'm surprised, because they needed to wait until really they got back to Buffalo. But I thought the horse thing for Ed Oliver would be more of an early story. It's just been that one. They showed it briefly when they were kind of running through like the montage of all the different horse stuff. I think it was Josh Allen's phone, like recording Ed on the street, like him driving by and Ed on the street on the side of the road with someone else riding horses. That was a thing like several years ago. Like people would see him literally like just going about his business, just huge, big Ed Oliver riding a huge horse on the side of the road. And so that's been known for like a couple years here. I thought that would be one of the things they leaned into at some point. And again, episode 3, yeah, there he is, all majestic on that horse. So I thought it was something that they would lean into. It made sense that they had to wait until they got back to Buffalo and really kind of showcase it. But yeah, I thought that would be something that they showed to kind of tap into the personalities that exist on the team.
So what is it? Like you said, it's been around for a while. And I remember hearing something around the draft, his draft, that he had some, desire with equestrians. Is that right there, Lerch? Or using my proper horse terminology there. So like, what is it? Has he explained his unique love for horses?
No, I think it's just as simple as like he grew up around him and always liked him. You're growing up in Houston and he's been around him. He's had one or multiple since he was little, and he just loves riding them and he takes care of them. And yeah, he's just like a big horse guy. I think it's part of, his lifestyle and how he grew up, and more power to him. But yeah, I didn't realize he had so many. When he was like rattling all the names off and then he was like, yeah, I'm up to like 30. I was like, 30? Like, that's just, and especially too, because he takes care of them. Like, it's not like he just has them, but he's got like a whole team of handlers that manage him and he doesn't do anything. Like, he takes care of them legitimately and rides them while still being an NFL player. So that's a lot to manage, man.
It's impressive.
Anthony, I think one of the things we knew we were probably going to get to see at some point in this Hard Knocks, at least I thought so, is a revisit to Demar Hamlin's story. I mean, it is an amazing story, and even though we're several years removed now, they did go back and touch on that. Give me your thoughts about how Hamlin is at this point. Where does that story sit with the Buffalonians, in terms of, kind of its magnitude, and how present is it still even in the Buffalo community?
I think it's muddy at this point because everyone it's still in the forefront of everyone's mind because of the gravity of what happened, the seriousness of what happened, and the uniqueness, right? Like, he essentially died on the field, and that medical team like brought him back. Yeah, which is just even like saying it now to me is like still crazy to think. Like, if they don't do everything perfectly, he doesn't come back. And then we all just saw on national television a football player like that. Not even a football player. We saw just a human being die on national television. I got goosebumps to even think about it. It's just like crazy to really think about. What's muddy with it now is, as we've gotten farther away from that, everyone cares about him as a person, but his play is just not ideal. He, in my estimation, he's more of like a safety 3. I think he's a guy who can fill in for your starters. If you got guys who are missing some time or some injuries happen that are unexpected, he can fill in and do the job. He's responsible. He's reliable. And he fits this defense well because of the, his college experience in Pitt and coming from Pat Narduzzi's defense. But his level to play isn't to the degree that a lot of fans want it to be, especially coming from, having Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and the level that they played the safety position at. So it's almost like his story and where he is now is a bit of like a contentious point for fans, because I think there's a good section of fans that think he's only still on the team because of what happened. And if it was purely just on what you're seeing on tape, he's a cut candidate. He shouldn't have been a guy they brought back. I think there's a lot of fans that are fine with him being on the team, but don't want him anywhere near the starting lineup. I think that's the case for most folks. And then you get the subset of that are just annoyed that they keep going to the well about the story that happened and thinking that's the only reason that he's on the team.
And that leads me to this question, because I don't know that it's been circulating in Buffalo at all, or if it's a real rumor or not. I think oftentimes trade rumors don't tend to be true, but it does seem possible that Kyle Duggar, the safety in New England, could be on the market, could be available, could be out there for someone to trade for the right deal. Is that something you think Buffalo would even look into? And are there any rumors in Buffalo about Duggar?
I haven't heard any rumors in Buffalo about it. I tapped into one of my buddies who covers the Patriots, Taylor Kyle's beat reporter, who knows tape and scheme and structure and is an awesome follow. Just breaks down everything objectively. And as soon as I saw the rumors on Duggar, because I've loved Duggar for years, Duggar and Jeremy Chin, those two safeties that came out in that draft class, I loved. Chin has had some injuries that have kind of derailed him a bit, but I've always been a huge fan of Duggar. And as soon as I saw kind of the rumors of him playing deep into that last preseason game, maybe being on the block, I hadn't watched any tape of the Patriots this preseason. So I reached out to Taylor, and essentially, to kind of summarize it, Duggar had an injury last year that he played through, and he's kind of paying for it now with the surgery and the rehab that he went through. And he's just not the same player. And he's almost more, Taylor's kind of exact words where he's more of like a box linebacker at this point. He said, quote, "I honestly don't feel qualified to say, but he looks more like a linebacker these days. Just can't explode downhill from depth and doesn't have any center field range." Based on that, the Bills already essentially kind of have two safeties that are more box safeties than deep or single high safeties. So if that center field range or range at all is limited, I don't think Duggar's a real option for the Bills, and might not be an option for a lot of teams if it is kind of, if teams are looking at him and are like, man, he just doesn't have any juice, he doesn't have any step. You're almost having to look for a very specific type of role almost kind of like how the Vikings use like Josh Metellus, but that's a unique defense and a unique role. And where does he fit? How does he fit? So I know some fans immediately like, oh yeah, Duggar, but I from what I've heard, again, I haven't watched the tape, but from what I've heard, yeah, and I trust Taylor. He's just not up to snuff for where they need him to be.
Two things here. Speaking of trades and speaking of the Vikings, a familiar face has returned to the AFC East, baby. It's Harrison Phillips. I know you can't wait to see him in the green and white getting traded to the New York Jets last night. First off, what was your first reaction to seeing that news? And what can you say about him? Because I remember as a Jets fan, Harrison Phillips was super annoying to play against. So now having him on our side, I feel much better.
I think that's a really good way to put it. Like, he is annoying to play against. At first, when I saw it, the first thing I thought when I saw the news was, yeah, I forgot they got Jonathan Allen and maybe he became a little expendable for Minnesota. But then I was like, oh, he's going to the Jets. Like, that sucks. But I think you hit it on the head. And like I said, like, he's just annoying to play against. I don't think he's somebody that is going to be this all-pro defensive tackle, but he's not a bottom of the depth chart guy. Like, he's really perfect as like a defensive tackle 3, or honestly, it's like a low tier to even mid at times defensive tackle 2. He's just a pain. And like, you put him in that Jets defense, who I still think is being slept on a little bit because of everything that's been going on with them. But I mean, you put him in a rotation that is anchored by one of the best defensive tackles and defensive players in all of football in Quinnen Williams, and like his running mate and worked into the rotation is Harrison Phillips. I think that's a good move for the Jets. Harrison's going to do well for them in that defense and playing alongside Quinnen. So yeah, kudos to him. That's, again, you got a stud in Quinnen Williams, and then you have a guy next to him that's just a pain in the ass to play against. Like, that's a nice grouping at the top of your interior.
So, Anthony, would you say the Jets are the new favorites in the AFC East now after this move?
I mean, it's hard for anyone to get past the Dolphins. And, I shouldn't say that. I'm too superstitious, and I'm not going to kick somebody when they're down. So, we'll say the Jets are. Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Go for it, boy. Green.
There you go, baby.
Devin, this is a moment, Anthony. A couple of fun stories that I wanted to touch on coming out of the Hard Knocks series. One was Sean McDermott's call to Marv Levy for his 100th birthday, and the other is Ray Davis wanting to kick. Two fun, interesting stories. So touch on those two stories from Hard Knocks.
Yeah, it was cool seeing Sean call Marv. I remember seeing that kind of the stuff circulating when that happened a couple weeks ago of just, it's Marv's birthday and his age, and he's still so, I mean, really anybody tied to those 90s Bills is forever a hero in Buffalo. But
I was going to say, how beloved is he? I mean, I imagine that he's really beloved.
Really, again, anyone attached to that team in some form is beloved, and the higher you go up the org chart, the more beloved they get. And then for Marv, he arguably might be at the top just because of being the head coach, but he's just such a nice guy. Like, you've never really heard anything negative about Marv Levy, and he just seems like the kindest, sweetest person. And that's what he was even when he was a coach. Like, he was like a people type of coach. He was so kind, and he knew how to connect to players and was really empathetic and understood who they were and how to, connect with them and bond with them. And so he's super beloved. And so I know it was cool to see, McDermott give him that call. I know that for fans, that was pretty cool in a lot of ways. And then, Ray Davis, I saw him kick an extra point or an actual field goal at the scrimmage, and then he kicks one in the preseason game. I mean, anything you can do to kind of maximize your value and, have that positional ability. I'm always for like crazy things too. So I'm like, lean into him more as a kicker. And then we put him out there for extra points or kick opportunities. And it's like, I don't know, are we going to do something different? Are we going to run some option football and pitch it to Ray Davis because he can actually run? Like, what do we do? Like, what happens? Is it a pass? Yeah. Are we going to send him on a wheel route, up the sideline? But yeah, it's cool to see him lean in. And he can, all jokes aside, he can kick a little bit. It's not just like a gimmick. Like, he can kick. Like, he's a functional kicker, which is wild to think think about.
Well, if you had one of those crazy games where, the kicker pulls his hammy or something and you're in the
we've
second
seen it
quarter
happen,
and you're like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
maybe you can depend on the guy to kick an extra point or two. Yeah.
Well, speaking of injuries, right, isn't Tyler Bastille dealing with, as they told us at Bill's training camp where we visited, an issue to the pelvic area? Is that still going on right now?
Yeah, essentially. That's why Ray was kicking in the first place. They brought in another kicker, but I think Bash should end up being fine for the regular season. They're just kind of managing it. But yeah, I felt like a multitude of Bills injuries. It seems like 1 to 4 guys go down every day with some different level of significant injury that they get. Some are minor, some are more significant, but yeah, it's affected everybody, even the kickers.
And the Bills have an England native, and from real England overseas, offensive lineman Travis Clayton, who decided to talk American food versus English food. I always mess around when they have those 9:00 games. I say, let's watch some football with some tea and crumpets. So this guy getting into it a little bit and teaching us a little bit, dare I say, about English food.
Yeah, and what's funny too is I had a buddy in college who was from England, and that exact conversation is what happened like with me and him and our friend group. It's all like you would get something here that he would be like, "What do you call that?" And we'd be like, "Oh, we call it this." He'd be like, "Oh, that's not what we call that there." And they'd be like, "Well, what do you call it?" And be like, "No, that's," even him just saying like that exact conversation of like, "Oh, a biscuit, you do this with it, but it's really just like a cookie." Or we would have a cookie and he'd be like, "Oh, it's a biscuit." And we're like, "No, that's a cookie. Like, this is a biscuit." And then what we call a biscuit, he's like, "What the hell is that? We've never seen that." And so, yeah, it's funny to see, even though they're professional athletes and playing in the league and they are who they are, they're just regular people just like us having the same conversations that we have.
That's awesome.
Well, look, we probably have one more week of this, dare I say, a little bit lighter talk, unless there are some trades or some big moves. Obviously, we'll be keeping our eye on the roster and the cuts, and that might lead to some interesting discussion. But we're not too far away, Anthony, from talking serious football here. Yeah. Buffalo Bills, clearly a Super Bowl contender, and will they achieve their goals? Just give me your gut at this point about how good the Bills will actually be this year, and how good should the fan base feel entering the season about their chances to get back to the Super Bowl and hopefully get that one.
And Anthony, just to add into that real quick, that was in Sean McDermott's Hard Knocks speech. Just because we were good last year does not guarantee we'll be good again. And he just said, some of you guys need this wake-up call. And he was sort of talking about that. So please.
Yeah, he mentioned hunger and guys who are like normally at a certain energy level or output level are not there. And he talked about rewarding guys who show up and who make plays. Yeah, it was very interesting. And then ironic that he spoke a lot of that. And then they went into the Bears game and got absolutely housed. But I think, again, I'm superstitious, so I'm going to choose my words carefully. Sure. But I this is one of the better teams in the NFL. I think Super Bowl is very much on the menu. It's all going to depend upon who they match up against in the playoffs and when. I think realistically, this is a Final Four team. I think the AFC Championship is super realistic. I think it's super realistic to think they can make the Super Bowl. It's just going to depend on who they match up against and when. How healthy do they stay? How healthy do the rest of the AFC stay? How much have they tweaked the defense and being able to make it a little bit more matchup focused, especially when they get to the playoffs? I still think this will probably anger, some Bills fans. I think the best team in the AFC, and I've really said it for the past several years, I think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC, arguably the best team in the NFL. I've said it the past several years. The biggest thing is the Ravens can't get out of their own way come playoff time. They just find a way to do something. Even against the Chiefs a couple years ago, the Chiefs couldn't play the run. Lamar's a little banged up. You have a good run game, and then they come out and they throw it like 75 times, and they don't run the ball. There's always something that happens to them in the playoffs where it's like they Jedi mind trick themselves. And again, you got to give kudos to the teams that beat them. Again, the Bills beat them this past year. But I still think the Ravens are the best team. We'll see what happens in week 1. If the Ravens beat the Bills or the Bills beat the Ravens, I'm not putting a ton of stock and being like, oh, that means the same thing's going to happen again come playoff time. But I think the Ravens are the best team in this league. But the Bills have shown they can beat them in the playoffs. They've done it twice. We'll see what happens. I think it's fair to think Super Bowl is very much on the menu. Just got to stay healthy and hope the chips fall right in your favor.
Yeah, it's funny. I think the Chiefs might take a step back this year, but then I looked at their schedule and I'm like, maybe they won't. And they have one of the easiest schedules. I'm like, how does this happen? The Giants have one of the hardest schedules, and they've been stinking for years. The Chiefs have one of the easiest schedules, and they're perennial powerhouses. How does a schedule making thing work? I'm completely baffled these days about schedule making. I'm sorry, I'm going into another question because I have to. It's mind-boggling to me.
Well, everything is always based on now it's a little wonky because you have the 17th game, so there's like the odd number thrown in, but everything is just based on the rotation that you keep up with the other divisions and playing the division winners within your conference, but then playing the other divisions from the NFC and how that works out. But yeah, it just seems like it favors the Chiefs. And even when it doesn't, to your kind of point and leading into that, even when you think like, man, the Chiefs don't look very good, or like, I don't know how they're winning these. They just keep winning games. Like, think about it last year. They were undefeated going into that regular season game against the Bills, and the Bills beat them. But they had so many games. I'm thinking that Falcons game, that Bucks game, where they just eke out these victories and you're looking and like, oh yeah, they're 8-0, 9-0, but like it feels like they should be like 5-4 or like 6-3. And that's just how they play the whole year. They just win all these like 3-point games, 1-point games. They figure out a way to win and pull it out. And then come playoff time, you've got Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, who are just two tremendous coaches on their sides of the ball who know how to game plan and match up and take advantage of your weaknesses and mitigate their own. And it just, it's this weird perfect storm. I feel, even for that conversation, it's like we're here to obviously talking Bills when I mentioned the Ravens, but in the back of my mind, I keep saying it, even though I think Ric Flair is overrated. To be the man, you got to beat the man. That Ric Flair quote, and the Chiefs are still the man in the AFC. So until somebody dethrones the Chiefs, I'm still picking the Chiefs to come out of the AFC every year. But I do think the Ravens are the best team on paper and schematically, but the Bills are right there in that conversation. I think it's a true 3-team race. And then we'll see if the Bengals defense isn't absolutely atrocious. Can they make some noise? Does anything happen with, the Texans get back to who they used to be? We'll see. But I think it's really a 3-team race, and the Bills are largely in the thick of it.
As a diehard New York Knicks fan, I know what it is to get past a guy. And that was Michael Jordan back in the Pat Riley days, and we couldn't get past him.
Man, now it's the Pacers now. Now you got Halliburton and those Pacers, man.
There's always somebody in front of you, So the Bills do have to get past these teams in order to get that elusive championship, man. I'd love to see it for the city of Buffalo. I really would, Anthony.
I just want
despite
one.
the fact that I'm a Giants fan, I would love to see it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm not greedy. I just want one. I always said that as a Red Sox fan growing up, I just want one World Series. Just give me one. And I got lucky enough to see 4 in my lifetime. And even when they struggle now, it sucks and I would like them to win. But I just think back to be like, I never thought I would see the Red Sox win a World Series ever. Yeah. And if I can get that for the Bills, again, I don't need a dynasty. I don't need, all these appearances and wins. I just want one. We only might need one because if the Bills win it, the Super Bowl parade here might burn the city to the ground. I don't know what'll happen.
Yeah. As bad as it is for you, Boy Green, at least you do have one. I mean, you weren't around for it.
It was Super Bowl 3, but it counts.
Hey,
it counts.
I just want to make this clear, okay? Make it clear for the audience. Every time the Jets go to the Super Bowl, they win. Some people would say it's 1 for 1, but I would say we've never lost a Super Bowl, baby. So if they want to just wait until they go and then they win again, all fine by me, baby.
Anthony, if he can find a silver lining with the Jets, he will always find it. Anthony Prohaska, Cover One. Always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. We'll talk to you again next week. Take care of yourself.
Thank you for having me. Take care.